the subscribe button, especially the bell on the right side. Otherwise, you will miss the latest videos.
Okay, now we're going to dive into some examples. I'd like to ask Victoria to come into the session live, please.
Yes, I found. Yes. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, Victoria. Can you unmute your mic? Mute your mic. Hi, Victoria. Namaste.
Namaste.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you for taking my question.
Of course, it's my honor. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar so far.
Yes, very much. Okay,
fantastic. Now, let's take a look at your question together. Your question was, I wanted to ask a question about having Jupiter in good dignity, Sagittarius, Mula Nakshatra, fourth Pada, so you mentioned exalted in Navamsha, but with the low Shud Bala at 91% in sixth house and losing planetary war with Mars, with aspect of Saturn from fourth. Okay, so you talked about some challenges there to the Jupiter, some challenges there from that vibration as well, even though that Jupiter has really nice dignity in your chart. So how to interpret the good dignity and the low Shud Bala together? What kind of result and karma would it show? And what does it say about the significations of Jupiter karma, like husband, children, guru, spirituality? Is that that's the correct question?
Yes, exactly.
And this is your correct charts, both North and South Indian?
Yes, perfect.
Fantastic. So, as you mentioned in your chart, we find Jupiter within 2 degrees of Mars in Sagittarius, okay? So here we have Jupiter at 13 degrees in Sagittarius and Mars at 15 degrees, okay? And as noted, Jupiter has good dignity in its natural sign of Sagittarius, but is struggling in some of the calculations of its planetary strength or Shud Bala. While the conjunction of Jupiter and Mars within 2 degrees could be considered a planetary war, I prefer to think of this as an auspicious conjunction, actually. As I talked a little bit earlier, that Mars and Jupiter, they have this really profound relationship. And so this aspect of your chart in which Mars and Jupiter are together, I think the conjunction of these planets is benefiting each other more than challenging each other. In other words, yes, there is a planetary war here, but at least these planets are best friends. And so that has some auspicious vibration as well. I also like to use Yogananda, the great Paramamsa Yogananda, who had a Mars Jupiter conjunction similar to yours in his 8th house. And he really made a difference with spirituality in the world. And so it can be very auspicious in terms of putting spirituality into action and wisdom into action. So that's not the most challenging part of the thing there. I think that can be positive. So Mars also has favorable dignity in Sagittarius. So like this Mangal Guru Yoga, you could call it, it has some favorable vibration. This conjunction sits in your 6th house, and what is suggesting your spiritual evolution is through work and service. And the Mars is making that more action-oriented. And this is where the more challenging karma sits, because Jupiter doesn't do particularly well in the 6th house. So more than anything, I think the greatest challenge to the Jupiter here is that it's in the 6th house. And it causes some loss to the Bala there, because Jupiter isn't really comfortable there. And it's not really comfortable in the 6th, 8th, or 12th house, but there can be exceptions to that as well. Now, how this challenging karma might manifest, that there are certain spiritual lessons and some difficult, you could say, education in terms of one's health. Because the 6th house is also indicated to do with Vikriti. So it shows there are some lessons as relates to the health of your body, the understanding of the health of your body, and what weakens you, and to keep yourself balanced, and some of the subtle challenges there, because this is the sixth house of Vikriti. It's not the type of health challenges that would lead to death or any type of chronic disease, but more so the kind of health challenges that we struggle with on a daily basis, like sometimes feeling really heavy, and then sometimes feeling like really like busy or action oriented. And sometimes with the Mars Jupiter, you can kind of go between those two things. Now, as far as the significations, and also one of the challenging aspects of this vibration is the sixth house is a strong house for self-improvement. And so this Jupiter and Mars showed there's a lot of spiritual self-improvement, and like showing that improvement in your life through like your actions and everything. So you're really a self-help, make yourself better kind of person. And it really, you've worked really hard on that, and you're really able to integrate all of the things that you've learned into how to make yourself a better person. This is really positive. And so, but on the challenging side of that, it can show you your flaws. So the flaws come to the surface more often because you're meant to work with them, because you're meant to move through them, because the process of self-improvement is the eradication of flaws. And then also the sixth house has an association as being the house of enemies. And so this can be a challenging karma for the Jupiter-Mars vibration in terms of along your spiritual path, you're going to find people who really believe in you and support you and what you believe in your vision. And there's also going to be some people who secretly, you'll find out, don't really have your best interests in their heart, in terms of these people, they could be jealous. They could be, they could not have the highest intentions for you. And so that could be one of the challenging vibrations of this position too. But overall, I see a lot of auspicious vibration in terms of self-improvement, the work that you do, the service that you do, and the service and then service-oriented nature. Now, as far as the traditional significations of Jupiter, you know, partner, children, guru, I think it shows that you are in a great service and work to all of these things, because this karma is concentrated its way in the sixth house. In other words, when it comes to your partner, you're kind of going to be in service, and it's going to be work. Because when the sixth house karma is concentrated, it's service and work. So there has to be an understanding that part of your spiritual evolution is to be in service to these things. And but this includes the partner. So, you know, the being with the partner, there's work. You're in service. When it comes to your children, you're really going to have to be in service, and they're going to be work too. And then also, but it's helping you for your spiritual evolution. And even the guru too, it's kind of like a service oriented or seva. So there's a real like strong significance that seva is the strongest path to your guru's grace. But it is yeah, I see this as a very beautiful and spiritual karma that has its challenges, because you're constantly in service and work to these things, and you're constantly improving on yourself. And but yeah, it's also aspecting your 12th house. So ultimately, this path of service, this path of work, is orienting you towards moksha as well. So that's supportive.
Thank you very much. So the low shat bala would show only for the challenges part.
What?
The low shat bala, it's about the challenges.
Yeah.
This is how you interpret it. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the challenge is there that that it's just the thing with Jupiter is that it likes its spiritual evolution to be comfortable. You know, and the challenge here from the Loshad Bala and the position of the sixth house is that your spiritual evolution, it's a action oriented, service oriented path, which is going to feel like work at times. So in other words, it's not as leisurely spiritual evolutionary path as a Jupiter might prefer.
Okay. It's very true. It's been 5 years I'm working in spiritual communities almost all the time, and I'm doing a lot of seva. So yeah, it's very true.
Such a pleasure to meet you, Victoria.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful. That was a great question. Thank you, Victoria. So now let's look at melt them.
Yes, sure. I don't see him.
No?
No. Actually, he was there previously, but I don't see him.
Okay. Oh, well, I really put a lot of thought into her question. Maybe we'll look at it as a case study.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we'll just go through it real quick as a case study, even though we're not going to be pulling her in. I just want her to see what I prepared for her. So my question would be related to her children. I thought this was a beautiful question. She mentioned that she had 6 children, and the 7th will be born in December. She loves the children very much, and she wants to know if something is going to change this year or next year related to all of the children. For example, will there be a separation between them or anything that is dangerous? So obviously a parent very concerned with the safety of their many children. We can all relate to that. Actually, I can't yet, but one day I'll be able to. Hopefully. So this is the chart of Meltem G that we had focused on here. And you'll notice as far as Jupiter karma, we have Jupiter and Mars conjunction again, posited itself in the 11th house, which is aspecting the 5th house, which is ruled by Jupiter. Now, when looking at Jupiter karma in this chart, with specific attention to the children karma, we find Jupiter in the 11th house, Gemini, conjunct with Mars, 29 and 3 degrees. In terms of extra significations of children, we find Jupiter aspects and rules the 5th house. So there's a full aspect of Jupiter on the 5th as well as a rulership. This type of karma suggests one's kama, K-A-M-A, soul's dreams, has a strong affinity for children karma, and therefore there is a deep soul desire to be a mother or parent. Okay? Also suggests that one's spiritual evolution and dharma is also connected towards being a mother or parent. So it's suggesting that the parent is being a parent is part of kama, and therefore the soul is desiring on this on a profound level. Jupiter's expansion here also promotes great fertility in the chart, which has supported you to be a mother of 6. So the rulership of Jupiter here, by the aspect, it's going to help with the fertility of the couple, which has supported you to be a parent of 6 and shortly 7 children, which is absolutely amazing. And I just want to thank you for bringing so many beautiful souls into this world. Now, I like Mars with Jupiter conjunction here, as what does it do in terms of your relationship with your children? It promotes you to be very active and present in their life. And it also helps you to bring a lot of wisdom into their lives. And so this allows you to bear support and welfare for them, which is one of the descriptions of Mars, which is basically to be there for them, to give them what they need and to help support them on their journey. You can also impart wisdom and education on them by Jupiter. And so particularly of moral and ethics, because of Sagittarius, you're teaching them right and wrong. You're teaching them good and bad, and this is an essential part of your karma with them. Also, since you have 4 planets in the Jupiter-ruled Pisces, and you'll see that in the 8th house here, you also have a great connection to the divine and to the mystical, and you can impart great spiritual wisdom on them and knowledge from the Paramatma. Jupiter in Gemini karma in your chart creates a diversity of children. So that creates a diversity, a diverse aspect to your children, which means probably different genders. So I'm sure that some are men, some are women, and that also that their personalities, their characters and interests, they would also vary greatly. So odds are you have 6, about to be 7, very different children. Okay, they're going to be very different in their natures. Now, of course, this depends on their charts and things like that. I'm sure there will be similarities before them too, but the Gemini aspects adds a variety to them. So there's differences to them that's very strong. It shows a profound connection and karma with your children and your dharma as a spiritual and your path, which is to be a parent. This Jupiter karma relates to your children, also shows that you will be extremely protective of them throughout their lives. Sagittarius is a very protective vibration. And so you'll always be fighting for freedom and fairness in their lives. So if they're treated unfairly, you will always be fighting in their corner, and you always be fighting for them. In terms of your concern of separation and safety for them, as Jupiter is the great protector, your chart shows strong protection of them. And so I have no doubt in your children's safety. Okay? But all your planets in your 8th house, I bet, would make you worry about that. But know that Jupiter is helping protect them here. Okay? However, there is a karma in the chart because you have Saturn retrograde in your Lagna. We're talking about a different karma here. You're a Leo Lagna with Saturn retrograde, okay? And so one of the things that relates to your question with this Saturn retro Lagna, I feel, is that as time goes on in life and children age, and at some point this will create a natural separation between you and your children. And you are currently in your Saturn Antardasha, your Saturn time of life, till May 13th of 2019. Okay? You're currently in your Saturn Mahadasha. And so part of your intuition is right, but it's completely natural. And that is signified in that as a new child comes into your life, you're about to have your 7th child. It is natural that one of the older children becomes more independent in their life. Okay, so your children will become more independent, and you will experience that as a separation at times. But nonetheless, it doesn't mean that they're less close to you. It just becomes they're becoming more independent in themselves. George, how you doing? Did we get George?
Yes, sure. I'll get him. Yes. I'm promoting. Hi, George.
Unmute the mic, brother. What's up, George? Oh, no, you had it. You had it.
Do you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Hey,
Hi,
brother.
dear.
How's it going? Namaste.
Namaste.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I hope you've been enjoying the webinar so far.
Wow, it was fantastic as usual.
Oh, thank you so much, brother. You're so kind. So I love your question. Let's talk about some karakas. You asked, what does imply having Jupiter as the Atmakara being in the great enemy sign Libra? Which is very interesting that Jupiter is in Libra now, so you'll be having your Jupiter return. So
That's right.
You can expect some big shifts and expansion in your career, that's for sure, because Jupiter has posited itself in the 10th house. But when we look at the Atmakaraka position, let's talk about, again, we talked earlier, there was a question, Jupiter has good dignity but low Shadbala. So there are these positive aspects and there are these challenging aspects. Well, here, that Jupiter in Libra, that could be considered a challenge. But Jupiter as your Atmakaraka, that's a major strength. So we have to look at how these somewhat opposing aspects are interacting with each other.
I see.
When Jupiter is Atmakaraka, it has incredible signification, which means any decision that you're going to make, George, you're going to be coming from a place of truth, ethics, and often spirituality. So as far as your decision-making process, there's always a prioritization on emphasis on truth, ethics, and spirituality. So you really, when it comes to the final decision or the final answer, it has to be in alignment with your truth, ethic, and your spiritual beliefs. This is part of what it means to just have Jupiter as your Atmakaraka. Now, it also shows there is a generosity in your nature, because Jupiter is very generous, as well as a kindness, warmth, and giving nature. So these are also aspects of Jupiter Atmakaraka. As mentioned, Jupiter finds itself in Libra, whose ruler Venus is an enemy to Jupiter. Okay? Now, this combination of the Atmakaraka, along with the challenging dignity, will create a mixed effect. So there will be some very auspicious, and then also probably some challenges as well. Now, certainly on the positive side, this creates a great spiritual appreciation of art, music, and entertainment, as well as an even deeper fondness for creative expression. So I talked a little bit earlier about how when you're at a music experience, you can experience the divine, you can experience the spirit in the music. Well, I've looked at your chart. We've done a reading together. I know you love music, and I know that you
That's
have
right.
experience. And so this is showing that because of your Jupiter return, though, it's a real important time to like embrace all of those energies and everything, just for the greatest expansion, because it's like the divine is in the music, the divine is in the beauty of nature, the divine is in the art, the divine is something you can see every day through the beauty of life. That's a real positive aspect of this combination here that I really like. And it also gives you a fondness for creative expressions that are spiritual or esoteric in their nature, like astrology, for example, which is a creative and spiritual kind of science. Now, it shows there will be an influence of love, beauty, pleasure, and material considerations involved in one's spiritual evolution. In other words, by the Jupiter in Libra with the Atmakaraka, it shows that one's full spiritual evolution, that you have to consider romance, you have to consider how to enjoy and have the beauty of life, as well as finances and houses and material considerations. In other words, all of these things need to be heavily considered in terms of the spiritual evolution, is the love and beauty and the potential for romance and the potential for material comfort and success. All of these things by the Jupiter in Libra aspecting the fourth in the 10th house here has some of these significations. So we talked a lot about the positive aspects. Now, on the more challenging side, it creates a karma, and this can be looked at two ways. In which one's spiritual path and evolution can sometimes be distracted by the material or the romantic. So these aspects of love, beauty, pleasure, and the material considerations, sometimes they can be a little distracting towards the ultimate spiritual evolution. In other words, sometimes money and the enjoyment of life and romance and all of these things they can be distracting from one's ultimate spiritual evolution, which is moksha, which is complete non-attachment. So experiencing of the material world can sometimes make non-attachment also challenging. And so that can be some of the challenge here. So the dualities of the material universe can sometimes be tempting to be appreciated and studied. So this means that romance, music, art, career, all of these things, money, they can be appreciated, they can be studied, which can be distraction from pleasures and the beauty of life. So this can be some of the overall summary there with the challenge is sometimes the beauty of life on this material realm can be distracting from the ultimate aspect of the spiritual evolution, which is non-attachment. But then also but we talked about all the positives, and I feel that despite this subtle distraction from having Jupiter in Libra, of the distraction of the beauty of these things, that because Jupiter is your Atmakaraka, that's your spiritual evolution, your morals and ethics, and your Dharma will always be prioritized, will always be the most important thing.
Thank you so much. Actually, does that matter that my natal Jupiter is in Vishaka Nakshatra, which is ruled by Jupiter?
Sure. That only suggests the ultimate expansion there through that nakshatra, through Jupiter, in terms of the greatest amount of spiritual evolution. And that is, if Jupiter had a low planetary strength, the fact that Jupiter's in its own nakshatra promotes its strength greatly.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, George.
Thank you so much.
So good to see you.
Good to see you. Namaste.
Namaste. Namashivaya. Okay, Rakesh, if he's here, I said we would look at his question, but I never heard back from him. So if he's not here, I'm going to move on to a celebrity example.
I think Rakesh is here.
Okay.
Yes. So I'll move.
Okay, let's bring him on.
Yes.
Take it easy, George.
Hi, Rakesh.
Rakesh, could you please unmute your mic?
That's not me. That seems to be
Okay,
someone
I've
else.
unmuted.
I can hear you now. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, but that's not my question. That seems to be the question by some other Rakesh.
Oh, okay.
Not actually? Okay. Not a problem, Rakesh.
Yeah.
Oh, this isn't your chart?
Yeah, it is not his chart.
Oh, I see. Is this Rakesh here?
No, there's only one Rakesh, and I already promoted him to panelist. So I think the Rakesh is not here.
Okay. Okay, Rakesh, that we brought on just out of spontaneous, before I get to the celebrity example, do you have a question, Rakesh, that you're here?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yes.
I have Jupiter in 10th, which is the Aquarius sign.
Okay.
So I just wanted to know how would the Jupiter behave. Like I have read in some text which says Jupiter, wherever it is placed, it spoils that the house, the result of that house. So I just wanted to know whether it holds true or not.
Rakesh, what type of work do you do in your career?
Currently, I have resigned from my job. I was in the IT sector.
Okay.
2 months back, I have resigned. I'm searching for a job.
Okay. So that's something that's very kind of emphasized about what's going on with the Jupiter and Aquarius. Okay. Were you here when we discussed the Jupiter and Aquarius karma?
Yes, I was.
And so how that would manifest there with Jupiter in the 10th house is, first of all, there's a strong nature of you which is about the evolution of your consciousness. Okay, when that posits itself in the house of career, it means that your career has to be in alignment with you could say, the most advanced aspect of your consciousness. So one of the things that Saturn might do because of the Jupiter in Aquarius is if the job or career path is not in the ultimate alignment with your if the career path is not in alignment here. Now, what sign is the Jupiter in?
It is in Aquarius.
Yes, yeah. I mean Nakshatra.
It is in
Is it in Saptarishis Nakshatra?
Give me a minute. I just forgot that. Let me just look one minute.
Do you know what degree it is?
Yeah, it is in Purvabhadra Nakshatra, and it's also Atma Karaka 20.40.
Okay. So basically this means that when the career is no longer in alignment with your consciousness, then you can no longer be working in that career. And your consciousness, because of Jupiter in Aquarius, it's constantly aligning to something that's collective on a greater whole, that is advanced. So what this kind of means is that eventually you will kind of find a path in your career, which as your consciousness continues to grow, that the career is allowed to grow in the same way, and that the people that you are working with in your career also have a similar consciousness. So this is just something that what current dasha are you in, brother?
I'm in Saturn Mahadasha and Rahu Antardasha.
Okay, so there you go. The Saturn Mahadasha is obviously going to be making this one of the periods in which the Saturn aspect of Jupiter and Aquarius is going to be emphasized, which means things are going to be slow moving to the ultimate process of your career right now. But you should know that eventually your career will be in complete alignment with who you are, what you believe, and how your consciousness operates. And so it's very important when you are getting, and because of Saturn, there will be some challenge, and because of Rahu, I'm sure there is some as well. But as you begin to get some insight into new job opportunities for you as well, some of the really important signs for the success of your career in those new opportunities is that your consciousness and the consciousness of your coworkers are similar. In other words, you can relate to your coworkers and your coworkers can relate to you. You think similarly about things. Your consciousness operates in a similar way. This is going to be something that is very auspicious for your career. And if you work with people who, let's say, are behind you in terms of your consciousness, in other words, their consciousness is not advanced, they're racist, they're bigotry, they're selfish people, then these people, they're not going to be essential to your life, and therefore you cannot really work with them. So one of the things that's a real good barometer for whether this will be a successful endeavor for your career is based on the consciousness of those that you work with.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Rakesh, one more question, and then I want to look at this celebrity example. In the past job that you left, how did you relate to your coworkers?
Those were really like a mean kind of people, you know. I used to work a lot and all the credit used to be taken by them. So that was the case.
And did you relate to them?
No, not really.
Okay, again, so the career wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking the same.
Yeah. But when you do start something new and you're really feeling like, wow, these people that I'm working with and the company that I work for and the president and the owner, I really like their model. I really like the way they do things. I really like the way they think about things. This is going to be a very auspicious opportunity. And eventually, because Jupiter in Aquarius, my friend, is incredibly innovative. So you have to give it some time for you to get into the inner workings of something, but then you're the one who brings innovation in it.
Oh, okay. That's good to hear.
Yeah, it's just going to move slowly as you begin. The most important thing is in the beginning is how you relate to the your boss and your coworkers, and that they have a similar consciousness of you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, brother. Okay, so let's look at President Obama. I just want to, well, former President Obama, and I can't talk about politics. But I really like Obama. And so I'm using Obama example here. And as you can see, Obama is Capricorn Lagna. And he has two planets, Jupiter retrograde and Saturn retrograde in the Lagna, 5 degrees of separation, okay? Now, Jupiter in Capricorn is debilitation. Okay, so you have debilitated Jupiter Lagna. But Jupiter is retrograde. And it says in the ancient text by Parashara, if you have a planet that is debilitated and that planet is retrograde, then it will act exalted. So what you have here in Obama's chart is an exalted Jupiter Lagna, which is really, really unusual. One of the things that I like to say about this Lagna is that this person is an extreme minority, because this kind of conjunction like this, I don't even know when the last time it would happen, but I imagine it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years apart, where it's this kind of double retrograde conjunction like that. And so one of the things I think that I like to say about this chart is that this soul came into this planet at a very specific, special time for a very specific, special purpose. And I like to think that was to be the first African-American president of the United States. Now, moving on, we look at the Saturn retrograde, which is in Capricorn. Therefore, Saturn has a lot of strength. So does Jupiter retrograde, so because it's acting exalted. So the Jupiter and Saturn here is incredibly strong. Now, Jupiter and Saturn don't necessarily relate well to each other, but these planets have a very profound auspicious dignity, Jupiter acting exalted and Saturn in its own sign. So you're having this extremely unusual and strangely auspicious Lagna. And one of the things about the Dharma that is indicative of this Lagna that I like to mention with the Jupiter karma is when we went back into Jupiter debilitation, we talked about that one's spiritual evolution is essentially connected towards adversity, okay? And Obama, being the first African-American of the United States, had to face so much adversity, civil adversity, people who told him that the idea of African-American president was impossible. But Obama persevered. He endured the challenges. He did everything he could do in order to become the best person that he could be, in order to overcome this adversity. And he faced this adversity. He had people telling him no, that he couldn't do it. He had people telling him that it was impossible, and there was hate. There was people threatening his life. How dare you have the audacity to think that you could be president of the United States? But Obama persevered. He endured. He pushed through this adversity. And on the other end, what was waiting him with this incredible Lagna, that Saturn is a planet that delays and it challenges and it tests, but it does not deny, this acting Jupiter exalted, this Saturn Capricorn. On the other end of this adversity, when he overcome it, he was the first black president of the United States of America. There is nothing that is more powerful than becoming the president of the United States. And also, well, there is, I mean, but it's one aspect of power. And then there's also Saturn, which is connected to politics, and Capricorn, which is connected to societies and politics. So this chart is very strongly connected to politics. And the Jupiter acting exalted is saying he's politically moral. He's politically ethical. He's politically, humanitarian and selfless. He gave health insurance to the entire country for free. After hundreds and hundreds of years of us having to pay insurance companies or go to jail. So Obama liberated us from this. This is a really powerful humanitarian politician who I think was destined to become the president that he did. And I like looking at this chart to just say, okay, Jupiter really helped this strange debilitation exaltation really helped Obama become president of the United States, along with this Saturn conjunction. So Jupiter karma played an extremely important part in Obama's rise to leadership. Okay, so let's take a couple live questions. Let's take some live questions in the question and answer section. So please pose your questions in the question and answer section of the webinar. Now, to answer Dave, Jupiter and Mars in Sagittarius ascendant role. That's a really powerful conjunction. It shows someone who is both moral and ethical, and also someone who is action-oriented. So it's constantly about putting morals and ethics into action and being the best person that you can be. Now, when Mars is in Sagittarius in the Lagna, this is heavy Pitta vibration. And so one of the things that you have to worry about is issues of the Pitta dosha in the body in terms of on your path for truth, on your path for righteousness. You might get too heated, too furious, too angry by the injustices, unfairnesses, and inequalities in the world. And this can really aggravate you. This could really irritate you. So you really have to keep the Pitta dosha in balance and understand that, yes, you are a spiritual warrior in your nature. But at the same time, you have to pick your battles wisely. Now, the second question, Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aries in 7th for a Libra ascendant. Okay, Dave Dot. So if there is a Jupiter-Saturn in Aries in the 7th, what you have is the debilitation of Saturn, but then Jupiter in a favorable position. Now, for the Libra ascendant, there's a connection to marriage, and by the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the 7th, this is emphasizing a lot of karmas in the relationship and a lot of karmas in the marriage. And so one of the things that's going to show up here from the Saturn vibration of the debilitation is that your partner is really meant to test you, to challenge you, to encourage you in order to test yourself, to be the best person you can be. And so this can be a challenging karma as it sits in the 7th house with the debilitated Saturn, because here is this partner, which is your soulmate, who is testing you constantly. So just know that there is an association of a test and a challenge from the partner. What is it great about this? They're helping you become more virtuous. This is how spiritual change is manifesting in you. But we don't always like to be humbled unless we're Shiva. Most of us human beings, when we get humbled, we cry and we get angry. So this is the vibration here, too. Now, with the Jupiter, there's a lot of growth through the partnership. There's a lot of learning from the partner, and the partner is learning from you. And so the way to encourage the most beneficial aspect of the relationship, this is a relationship which couples counseling would be very beneficial for. But also with the Jupiter vibration, to realize that the guru is the partner. And so there has to be this honoring of the spirit through each other and the guru in each other through the relationship. Okay, special implications of the 5th and 9th aspect of Jupiter. This is a great question when we're looking at aspects of Jupiter by the 5th and 9th aspect. Now, the 5th aspect of Jupiter, it usually emphasizes certain karmas as relates to the karma with the children and also the creativity. So when you're looking at the 5th aspect, you're looking at certain karmas as relates to the children. You're looking at certain karmas that relates to the creativity. But when it's but by the ninth aspect, it's more of the spiritual, the religious, the mystical implications. So as far as the karakas that are associated with Jupiter, the fifth aspect more associated with children, and the ninth aspect more of the spirituality, guru, and the religious vibration. Okay, Jupiter in Virgo for a Sagittarius Lagna, moon aspecting from Pisces. We talked about Jupiter in Virgo. Now for a Sagittarius ascendant, they relate well to Jupiter, but the Virgo can be challenging. And really all I want to say about this is we talked about how you have to keep in mind that there is a spiritual wisdom which comes from the celestial realms, which is the Paramatma. And Virgo has a very strong intellectual preoccupation. So sometimes there may be a temptation to favor the intellectual, but I encourage you to really favor the spiritual to improve the planetary karma with Jupiter here. Okay, so a few more questions. Dave. Okay, great. Okay, Jupiter and Pisces. Oh. Okay, since we're getting lots of questions now, I'm gonna answer questions for people who haven't asked question, and then we'll see if we can get to the other. Okay, Nikhil, exalted Jupiter Ketu conjunction in the third house. So that means Cancer. So you have an exalted Jupiter-Ketu conjunction in the third house. Now, Jupiter-Ketu is a very significant conjunction. I've read interpretations by certain astrologers that says this is very favorable. Okay, why? Jupiter being the planet of spirituality and religious wisdom. And the exalted Jupiter Ketu vibration, Ketu being the planet of moksha karaka. So when you take the spiritual, religious, and mystical implications, combine them with the moksha, it can be incredibly productive for the spiritual evolution of the individual on their path to moksha. So in other words, there's a strong proponents by this that if you follow your devotional path, if you follow all of these guru karmas we talked about, aligning to your highest moral and ethical potential, aligning to your highest amount of spiritual and religious wisdom, this has a great propensity to really help lead you to the path of moksha, which is liberation. So there's a strong propensity in your chart for some experience of moksha or liberation, if you can continue to improve your planetary karma with Jupiter. Oh, and because it's in the third house, obviously siblings, there's a strong karmic relationship with siblings. It could show that you have younger siblings that are very important to your karmic evolution, but K2 can sometimes take away siblings. So it's possible that you don't have any siblings, or that you're the youngest siblings, and there's karmas with both of those situations as well. Okay. Oleg, Jupiter and Saturn both retrograde in Hasta, Virgo Lagna. Can you comment on karma? Yes, the Jupiter and Saturn aspect can be very interesting. Both retrograde, and we saw that in Obama's chart. So isn't it interesting you and Obama have something in common? That'd be pretty cool. So, but basically there's this vibration that Jupiter and Saturn are both retrograde in the Virgo Lagna, and how would that influence your karma? Well, Saturn as Kṣaṇāti, and Virgo is a very slow-moving planet. So when these planets are together, the life moves rather slowly. Now, the retrograde of Saturn might take away a certain amount of delays at certain times, but overall, there's going to be a heavy emphasis that things in the life move slowly. Now, with Virgo, we talked about this integration of the intellectual, rational with the spiritual wisdom. Because Jupiter and Saturn is there together, you have this lifetime, you have this knowledge or wisdom from your past lifetime. And Jupiter and Saturn are going to be working together slowly to help you embody this balance. So in a sense, Saturn will be testing you. You will get many situations in your life from Saturn that are saying, this is what logically makes sense, but this is what you know is right. This is what intellectually makes sense, but this is what you know your teachers and your gurus say. And you will be given situations. And this situation will cause your spiritual evolution every time you honor the Jupiter vibration over the Mercury Virgo vibration. But again, there's a strong buddhi by the Virgo Lagna. Those are some of the comments I'd like to share there. Okay, great. Now we're looking at Madhavi. Jupiter in 4th house in Taurus, only 4 degrees, but retrograde. Madhavi, I really like this because I have Jupiter in the 4th house in Taurus retrograde. So you and I have the exact same position of Jupiter, so I'm pretty much talking about my own karma as well. Now, when Jupiter is in the 4th house, the house of the home, and this is retrograde, and so the Jupiter in the 4th house brings the person to the home and very strongly connects them to the home. What does that mean? For the past 4 years, I work from the home. Also, I spend most of my time in the home. I do my writing in the home. I do my praying in the home. I do my cooking in the home. So Jupiter is like a temple. We mentioned that Jupiter is like a temple. So when Jupiter is in the 4th house, it is like the home is a temple. And that you recognize the spirituality and the divinity of the home and the self, because the 4th house is also the inner nature of the individual. And Parashara says that if Jupiter sits in the 4th house, it should give the individual a joyous disposition for their entire life. And so Jupiter in the 4th house is a very joyful disposition. I'm a very optimistic person, even though I'm ruled by Saturn. And but retrograde kind of shows that when it comes to your spiritual path, it's very closely connected to the home, and it's retrograde, which means it can be kind of rebellious. So when it comes to the spirituality and the path of the home, this can be kind of rebellious. So also, by the Taurus vibration, the home can be kind of an escape, where the home is a place of beauty, the home is a place of pleasure because of Taurus, and the home is a place where you can escape a lot of the more challenging karmas. It's just like Jupiter is protective, but when it's retrograde, it can make the individual at sometimes kind of like a hermit, where they might want to stay at home for multiple days at a time. They don't really notice that they haven't gone out or anything. It is your elderly brother's chart. Very nice. Okay, so we looked at all of these questions. I'm just going to look in the chat real quick, see what's going on there. Let's see with the chat. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so Jupiter in 1st house, Gemini ascendant, but in Navamsha Capricorn in 4th. So first looking at Jupiter, Gemini ascendant in the Lagna, Jupiter is really going to provide a lot of protection to the Gemini vibration. So it's not as inauspicious because it's in your Lagna. And when Jupiter is in the Lagna, no matter how difficult some other aspect of your chart, Jupiter acts like protector of entire chart. So here, as we look at Jupiter in the 1st house, Gemini, all of these aspects of your moral and ethical potential are true, and there's going to be a diversity to your wisdom. And this is your personality because it's your Lagna. So there's going to be a real diversity to your knowledge, a real diversity to your wisdom. And you might find yourself interested in different religions, different spiritual sciences, yoga, Ayurveda, Vastu, Jyotish. You might find yourself kind of interested in a little bit of this and a little bit of that as far as the different paths of wisdom out there. Okay, great. Let's see. So I think that's shall conclude our webinar today. It's been such a pleasure to dive into how to improve our planetary karma with Guru Deva, Brihaspati, Jupiter with all of you. We went into detail about the nature of Jupiter's karma, how it manifests in a current transit, how it manifests in the varying signs and planetary dignities. And then we went into detail about how to improve the planetary karma with Jupiter, both from an ancient perspective, a lifestyle perspective, and an Ayurvedic perspective. And then we had some nice examples about how to look at Jupiter karma and how to analyze it, and some wonderful questions from some very intelligent and wonderful guests. I just want to thank everyone who joined us today. I want to thank you, Madhuraji. I want to thank you to all of the guests who joined us, all of you who attended the webinar, all of you at home who are watching this webinar for the first time. I'd like to give a special thanks to the entire team at Saptarishis Astrology, particularly Sunil John for his vision for this incredible organization, Saptarishis Astrology, which continues to bring this Ayurveda, this ancient Vedic science of Jyotish, and make it accessible to individuals from all over the world. So special thanks to Sunil John and everyone who made this possible. I am so deeply and profoundly honored. Thank you.
Thank you from all the. It was a really wonderful webinar, as completely different and completely great learning experience, and really appreciated whatever effort